And Bronwyn Bishop, we talk about it a lot, but I mean, to know that Austrade are concerned that because China's not buying our wine, Penfold Grains, they love all those high-end brands. They've produced their own wine. They stick the word Grange on it, and they try to sell it to the world as their own. I mean, this is the sort of nasty stuff. It's all, two to the valley, as we say here in Queensland, flicking us the forks, if you want, to sort of see how we react. China's saying we're mean, but we found out this Belt and Road Initiative was also being used by Chinese triads to launder money. I mean, on many fronts. Daniel Andrews, and I know he's apparently sick in bed or whatever, in traction or whatever's going on, and I genuinely wish him a speedy recovery, but I actually think he's got to seriously ask himself whether or not he actually knew what he was doing when he was signing up to this thing.
Well, Gary, he went to China under President Xi many, many times, and as we start to see the story roll out, we see that the connection of many in the Labor Party is far too strong. They are a socialist party, and it was Khrushchev who said that socialists are communists without guts, but some of them are closer to the Communist Party than others. So we have a real problem. We are starting to realise, and thank goodness, last night the Prime Minister did not succumb to the friendly fire coming from Biden to say that we would sign up to no emissions by 2050. I mean, the country dodged a bullet last night. The fact of the matter is that we have to put Australia first, second and third. That means that we have to be prepared to defend ourselves, and we have to acknowledge the fact that when you see the Biden administration and the way it's operating, when you saw that United States Secretary of State introduce so-called America's version of Greta Thunberg, I was just appalled at what he said about her as being the hope of the future and what she had to say about what she saw the world. Now, if we come right back to the question, and you were talking about cyber attacks, that's part and parcel of the armament of modern warfare. And we've seen Xi outline what he sees the world like. And he talks about now China and America being on the same plane with Biden having beaten Trump. He would never have said that if Trump had been re-elected, and we wouldn't see this aggressive behaviour grow if Trump had been elected. And that's what many of us said, I certainly said, would occur if Biden were to be elected. So we have to acknowledge that it is just as obscene to bend the knee to a friend as it is to bend it to a foe. We have to stand up for Australia first, second and third. And so we've got many, many issues that we have to address, and it all comes back to the same question again and again. We have to be able to have cheap electricity in this country, our only competitive advantage, in order that we can become more self-sufficient and we can start to build a lethal force, which we are able to be seen as a real force to be dealt with.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll take a break in a moment, but just a quick comment from you, Gerard Rennick. I mean, the point is we have to sell stuff to other people. And I think Colin Tinkle's point about when you're in trade situations, chances are you're in a friendly relationship. We need to do that. I get that. But the last thing we need to do is to sell ourselves short just to sell stuff to other countries.
That's right, Gary. And the last thing we should be doing is selling our infrastructure. The name of trade is to basically sell goods and services. It's not about selling assets and liabilities. And what we've done in the last 40 years, and this Belt and Road Initiative that's been cancelled this week, this is only part of a much bigger problem where we've privatised a lot of our infrastructure, number one, and then we've allowed the sale of it to foreigners, and I don't care which country they're from. So we've actually lost control over many parts of our sovereignty, because it's not just the military system that we have to rely on. We have to rely on our economic system, our infrastructure system. And for too long, we've sold too much of that infrastructure, and we need to get control of it back. And talking about a way out of COVID, we spent $200 billion last year on paying people to stay at home. I think we ought to look at, and the RBA is printing $5 billion a month, we ought to look at putting another $200 billion into buying back our infrastructure, our ports. It's not just Darwin Port, it's plenty of other infrastructure is foreign owned, but we should be looking at buying back our ports, our airports and our railways and things of critical infrastructure that have strategic importance to the sovereignty of this country.